Okay, I'm Dana Frederick. I'm the data systems manager. Melissa Mosley is also here today, the validation manager, and Christy Opsimer is here as well. She is going to be a fly on the wall though today, so I hopefully will be able to answer all of your questions as you have them. So today we're going to go through our initial application that is in the revised system. This is going to be the first stop on our road to getting a new quality rating. As I look at the agenda today, I just want to welcome you all. It's great to see you all. It's been a while, at least a couple of weeks now since we've all gotten together. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to take a quick look at the process map again and just see where we are in the process. I'm hoping that by providing the process each time that we do one of these training sessions, it'll sort of put it into context as to where exactly we are with the piece of the system that we're talking about. So I hope to do that at every training. The next thing that we'll talk about today is why do we even have the application? What's it for? What does it steer in the system? So that'll be one thing that we hit on. We'll talk about some of the functionality updates for the application, the things that are different from the old system into the new system. And then we'll get into questions. There's some folks that weren't able to join us today. Unfortunately, our session is overlapping a GSQ orientation session. So for those folks, we are recording this session, and I have asked them to submit any questions that they had in advance based upon the video that I sent earlier in the week. So I did get some questions back, and we'll be able to answer those so that everybody has the same answer, and we can refer back to this recording if needed. Also take your questions about the training video, and then we'll talk about the next step. I do just want to note that I don't intend on walking through the entire process again today because you were provided with the video, just because we know from past times trying to do that, we have problems in the system where it's spinning slow, and we just have to sit there and wait, and that's no fun for anybody. But I can hop into the system to show things, but I just don't want to take the time to walk through the entire process step by step. Okay. So first, let's take a look at the process map. So you'll see the first step on our process map really is maintaining that health and safety licensure, health and safety quality level. That really is just, you have a DH or a LARA license, it's in good standing, you're going to get your maintaining health and safety. So we are at the second step on the process map, which is the application for a new quality level. During this step, we're going to review our information and submit our application. So really, that's just where we are within the big picture of the process. So why are we even doing an application? As you know, the application started with our move over to the New World Now system, to our new STARS platform. We implemented the application really so that we could render the SAS as it was needed. So we could, capture whether or not they're a GSRP. We could see if, they needed to go down the alt pathway. Still the same is true today, going into the revised system. We're capturing that information up front. Namely, it's not really alt path anymore. We'll get more into this later, but it's really about the children's enrollment within the program. We're capturing this information up front so that we know that they have the correct indicators as they are moving through the process. One example of this is that if the program says that they have no school-age children in any of their classrooms, they're not going to get FCP1. Program shows that it gives information to families about children's individual development progress. That indicator won't show up on theirs if they're school-age only. the other reason for providing the application within the system is to prompt our providers to review their information that is in their org profile before proceeding through the rating process. Okay, so if you viewed the video, you will note that the application kind of looks and feels a little bit different than it did before. The one that we're working with right now, you have to click into the application and then it takes you over into the org profile and you do a little bit of data entry into the org profile. Then you have to cancel and go back into the application and then you can submit that category and back and forth and back and forth. We all agreed that that was a little bit cumbersome. We didn't like the back and forth aspect of the application, nor did we really didn't like the fact that you couldn't just look at the application once it had all been submitted. You know, we really had to go back into those individual places in the org profile, remember where all those places were to think, okay, well, this question was on the application or that question was. So we redesigned it so that the application data that is submitted is just housed within the application and it's not housed within the org profile, because really remember what this application does is that it sets up the self-reflection indicators for the self-reflection. So it really isn't to update the org profile, it is to get the stage set for which indicators appear on their self-reflection. So another functionality update is going to be that within the application, any responses that they give within the application, as you saw as I was going through and clicking on the responses, this functionality is not yet available, but it will be saved so that you guys as coaches can go back in and take a look and see, oh, okay, well, this is how they answered. This is who their GSQ person is, or this is, you know, their employee status, anything like that that was answered within the application. It will be safe for you to go back and review after that application is submitted. The application, as it is right now, it's going to pull in employment info from the org profile. Now, this was not something that was on the video, and I'll cover this a little bit more on the next slide, but I just want to set the stage with that. But I do want to remind you that with this initial application, this one that they're doing right now at the beginning of the process, they're not going to receive a call from ECIC whenever they submit the application. They submit it, it's done, their self-reflection is ready for them to start working on right away. There's no call from Melissa or her team. They're just going to go right in and start working. So I'm going to pause right there. Actually, no, I'm not going to pause. I'll pause after the next slide and we can take any questions. So this is what I'm talking about. During the video, when we went into the program employment tab, there were a slew of questions. I think there's 6 to 8 questions in there asking about, are your employees all up to date in the employees tab, and things like that. So one thing that is missing right now on our testing site is this piece right here. I took a screenshot of what it's supposed to look like, this program employment and employment verification information. So instead of whoever's filling out the application having to guess whether their employees are all in their employee tab, it's going to be right in front of their face at the top of the page. So they're not going to have to go and hunt for that. It'll be right there. And I'm hoping that that will be available soon for our testing so that, you know, we can really show you how it looks. So I want to pause there. I know it's a lot of information, so if we have any questions, I'll be happy to take any initial ones.
So Dana, we do have two questions that I'll go over, but I want to just point out, because everyone couldn't see the functionality about this, that little blue box right there that has a check mark, the org profile owner can actually use that to change position titles, which to me was like life-changing, and I'm sure will feel that way to many of you. So they can, if somebody puts themselves in and is as an assistant, but they're really a lead. The person doing this can go ahead and make that change immediately, which I feel like is a really big win. But we did get one question, Dana, on if the slides would be shared out with all of the resource centers.
Oh, sure enough. Yeah, I'd be happy to share all the slides. I can send those out with the recording of the meeting. So yeah, please look for those in your inbox after this is all done and the recording renders and all of that.
All right, and then the other question that came in is there an overnight wait for the self-reflection after submitting the application, or will it instantly be available?
No, it's instantly available. In fact, as soon as you click to submit your application, your self-reflection just pops up. There's no in-between screen, nothing. Like it's bam, it's right there, and they can start working on it immediately if they would like to. And you'll see that in our next training video, where we will be going over the indicators. So I'll be sure and show that transition between submitting the application and those indicators popping up, but I think it's pretty slick.
And Dana, Becky just asked, if a provider fills out the application and then has a change to their program or realizes they made a mistake, what will they need to do?
It's a great question, Becky. So probably contact us. We are going to have the ability to cancel quality improvement case or quality improvement. Oh my gosh, rating cases. So then we can just wipe everything out and they can resubmit. So it's really not a big deal. From the functionality isn't built out yet, but from what I understand, it's going to be pretty easy. And anybody, Melissa, myself, Christy, Candace, will be able to do it for you.
I would say there's probably some, mistakes that we wouldn't have to cancel out of case. If it's just a phone number, right, we can go in and get that information updated. Whether that's just on the org profile or in case notes, it wouldn't be updated in the application view. But simple things, I would say we probably wouldn't have to cancel the case over.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Melissa. Yeah, and I'll hold this until the next piece. I had somewhere else I was going to go, but I'll hold it so we keep going. Okay, so let's keep going. I'm going to address some of the questions that we had from colleagues that couldn't join us today. So I asked them to submit their questions in advance so that everybody has the same answer. And, that way it's just like, the more folks that ask questions and that get these clarifications, because I know that you guys think of things that I don't think about because I'm not working with providers every day. So you guys know where they get tripped up and you guys know where the faults in the system might currently be. So that's why I really want to get all these questions out into the open and get everybody a good answer to them, just so that we're all on the same page with this. So so I received this question twice. If a change is made to the general information or classrooms in the application, will that be updated in the org profile as well? So I want to expand this to everything. So it's not updated in the org profile. It lives within the application. Unless I see you making a face. Okay. I wasn't sure if you disagreed with me here. Okay, so once we update that information, the only place it's going to change is within the application itself. It's not going to change within the org profile. The reasoning for this is that because the application is driving the indicators on the self-reflection, that's really what it's doing. It's not really meant to update the org profile. It's just meant to figure out which indicators are going into the self-reflection. So if they change the number of classrooms within their application, or maybe the enrollment within the age groups overall, it's not going to translate back to the org profile. So do I have any questions about that, since I got that question a couple of times? And you guys can unmute too. You don't have to just type in the chat.
Yeah, there's one comment of like, maybe we need to clarify that for programs, because programs will probably assume that it might be changed in both places.
Yep. Yep, I think that that's a really good idea. And I think that that is something that we will definitely try and drive home with our communication to programs as we roll this out. Okay, any other questions about that?
I have one question about that. So
Yeah.
is there any importance in the org profile information then? I totally understand. I think it makes perfect sense. I'm just worried that now they're going to have updating to do in WLS and then the org profile and then the application. So just thinking of good, clean data, is there any consequence to not having good updated data in the org profile?
That's a really good question, Candy. I mean, I can definitely see the consequence of, you know, those two things not being updated in the same place, because we do want that clean data and we don't want to put the responsibility on the provider to be updating it in all three places. My wheels are turning, Candy. I'm thinking I had another place I was going with that. One of the problems that we have with it's not really a problem with the application, but one of the ways that the application was designed was so that it's asking the questions relevant to the self-reflection indicators that need to be generated. So I say that in terms of the questions that we're asking in the application don't necessarily have a one-to-one correspondence with the org profile. So we asked for the total number of toddler enrollment, but that doesn't correspond to, I have 15 toddlers in one classroom and 16 in another. I have 31 altogether, because we're putting 31 into the application, but we have 15 and 16 in the classrooms. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And even if we don't have an answer on all those things today, it's just something to think about. I was thinking.
Yeah, definitely. And that's definitely something that we can follow up on as well.
Yeah, so Western is also saying they're struggling to think of an example when the provider would choose to have different information in the application than the org profile. But I think what Dana was trying to get at is there are things that are asked in the application that don't exist anywhere in the org profile. And there are items in the org profile, like specifically those classrooms, that do not appear in the application anymore. So there's just differences between the two. So I don't think there's like a real desire or an intent from anybody to have different information in there. It's just something we'll have to look back into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for saying that more eloquently, Melissa.
Speaking of the classroom information, when I was watching the video, it occurred to me that providers might go, well, I have more than one classroom, like you were addressing earlier. And so I think it's really important to call out that it's the total number of children in that age, not necessarily per classroom, but just really emphasizing that it's a total and not classroom based.
That's I'm taking a note right now, Liz. That's a really good point. And I have not said this yet here, but I did say on the video a couple of times, we are still modifying all of those labels. So all of the text, all of the wording is really, it's Play-Doh right now, it's malleable, we can change it. So that's a really good point, Liz. And I'm not sure that was something that was on our list, so I'm writing it down.
Yeah, Candy shared another helpful tip about maybe adding some of that help text to the top of the application. Mm-hmm. And I know we haven't gotten all of that written yet. So yeah, that'll be a good one for us too.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you guys for your eagle eyes on that. Okay, so is everybody comfortable with me moving on from application to org profile? Okay, let's move on to the next one. So this is a question about the GSQ contact. Could something be added to provide more clarity to the initial question? So yeah, we haven't done any work on the labels yet. So that's definitely going to be something that's sussed out a little bit more. I understand that, you know, if they're filling this out without ANQIS support, it could be a little bit, confusing. So we like to keep that in mind as we're doing all of the labeling within the system. I know that as Melissa and her team were working on the indicators and doing the anatomy of an indicator, which you guys were awesome and participated in, that was really kept in mind too. So once the GSQ contact is filled out, does this information live anywhere else besides the application? So no, it just lives in the application. So this is another example where this is not necessarily something that we want living in the org profile because it really doesn't correspond to anything else within my registry. It really is just for the use of QRIS. So we decided to put this into the application itself. And then that way it just sort of lives in the application. We know exactly where to refer back to it, all of us, in case we need to get that GSQ contact. Okay, do we have another couple of questions come in? No, okay.
We actually just got one. So will providers be required to complete all profile tabs before submitting an application?
So if you're talking about the org profile tabs, no. But, let me say but, it will behoove them to complete their org profile tabs before opening up their application, because the information from the org profile is going to translate into the application where it's applicable. So we're going to bring in the contact information. We're going to bring in total number of classrooms. The total number of children by age group is also, I believe, provided. I might be misremembering that. But anywhere where we do have the ability to bring that in, we are bringing it in. So while the org profile doesn't need to be filled out, it will only help them in the application if it is filled out. And then the application is just meant to be an update of the information, because sometimes we know that that can go stale after a while. Okay, good question. Okay, so I'm just going to open the floor up for questions now. Go ahead and unmute yourself and just ask away, and I will answer.
So I have just a wondering. So my thought is, would it be beneficial to add a step prior to the application to kind of lead them into updating the org profile before going to the application?
An interesting question, Chris. So like an official step, or would that be a cooking step?
Kind of like a cooking step, I guess, because if it's going to benefit them with the application, I'm just wondering if that would be like a good step to start with, especially if they're not being supported by, you know, the staff, QI staff. Then that way they know that that would be helpful when they move on to the application.
That's really interesting. I'm wondering, so the first place that my mind goes is whenever we have, and let me get out of the presentation for a second here, and let's get into the system, okay?
While you're doing that, Dana, just a comment that I really love the fact that there could be a different person in the application as the contact. So that I see as a huge benefit, because you know, we see that a lot where the person working on the orientation, oh my goodness, on the rating is different than the contact. So I love that feature.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to Melissa for that one. That was her brainchild. After what, 2 years now of contacting possibly the wrong person to try and schedule validations, like this is a big win, I think, for everybody.
I mean, we asked for it a while ago, but it wasn't a thing. So really Pennsylvania is our true winner because Pennsylvania put it in the system.
Yeah.
And so Dana, just while you're getting to where you want to get, we have a question that came in that says, I like that the application is shorter, but if it makes sense to have their org information updated, shouldn't we keep those prompt questions in the application? So everything is still in the org profile, but the big things that we removed from the application, like specifically those classrooms, we don't need when they're first getting in, and understanding that this process is really like driven time-wise by the program and is potentially going to be pretty different from when they fill out this initial application to when they get to that on-site observation. We really felt like a lot of that was going to change. And so it didn't make sense putting that into the application, making them do that. What we're going to do instead is when either, the assessment manager, someone calls to schedule those on-site observations, they're going to update that classroom information with them. So let's say, right now Candace is making a lot of calls to help Kristen and I out. Candace will call them. Candace will update those classrooms while she's on the phone with them, because there's right now we get a ton of change from our current application to observation. I can't imagine how many changes would happen in between that. So we tried to take out all of those things from the application that just didn't really fit right here. So everyone can still, choose to update those classrooms anytime they want, but we're just not going to require it to be a part of that application itself. So if they don't choose to do an on-site observation, them keeping that updated is for them. Every program that wants to go for that demonstrating quality has to have an on-site observation. There's no choice to not have that anymore. So I think that's the little bit of a difference. Is it's there, it's helpful, but we're already getting the information about enrollment and if children speak another language or if they're on subsidy, we're getting that in that application now. So we have those really big data points.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dina. This is we're all together watching this on the big screen. So you guys are movie stars. I'm just trying to let that whole thing sink in, and I'm sorry, but I guess I'm slow on the uptake. I'm just not getting, if it's so important, we're really working with my registry in that part too. Why wouldn't the program profile or the organization profile, whatever, why wouldn't that be very necessary and tied together? Because now we're going to be struggling with two ends of the spectrum. So I guess I'm just not getting it. Is there another way to say it that I can understand it better?
Yes. The application is only to populate the indicators and the self-reflection. Bottom line. And so that's really the questions that we're asking in this application, and that's it. And in order to streamline it and make it smoother, right? And so the information around classrooms and such that pertain to observation, there's another application down that big process map that we all looked at a couple of weeks ago, right? And we can certainly pull that up if that's helpful to folks. But we're only asking the things that matter related to the self-reflection. Is that helpful?
Yes, but they still need to have that filled out to get into it in the first place, correct? But updating it is a whole different ballgame. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not sure what the it is. Updating the org profile?
Yes. Yes, that's what, yeah, to update the org profile. That's still going to be an important function, correct?
Yeah, I mean, so I think it would be easy for you all to do and focus on the same things that you always have. There's no need to change the script that you use with providers, and that, like, yeah, that's foundational information that we need for all kinds of reasons.
Okay.
If they miss something in the org profile, it's okay because they can do it in the application. So I don't think you need to change the way that you're working with programs, because to your point, that's confusing. So keep doing what you're doing as it relates to the org profile if you'd like. The application is just shorter.
Okay, and the application doesn't reflect back to the org profile, but the org profile will flip over to the application, correct?
So you're using the word flipping. So there's
Okay,
no-
sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So I just want to clarify, there's no flipping, but if you're talking about populating,
Yes.
then to Dana's point, yes, if they do some things in the org profile, it will populate their application.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you, Christy. I appreciate that. Sometimes in my head, this stuff seems to make sense, but whenever it comes out of my mouth, it does not. I appreciate Christy's reasoning always. Chris, I want to get back to your question about prompting folks. So this was my gut reaction whenever you asked this about prompting them to update the org profile. So right now, this is what we have whenever they go and hit the apply button. I am wondering if, because this is what we have right now for the new, the new apply button, it's just TBD. We still have to write all the text for it. I'm wondering if this is the place, instead of adding like a required step in the process where we walk folks through talking about, please go update your org profile. If you need to, talk to your local, neighborhood QIS, all of those things that you're talking about, Chris, I wonder if it belongs in there. Does that feel right, or am I sort of off base?
No, I think you're on the right track of what I was thinking. It wasn't necessarily like a requirement, but like, heads up, this is a good idea. Let's think about this, or, just a highlight.
Okay. Let us do some brainstorming internally too, to talk about this, and if anybody else has any input too, or if you think of anything later, drop us a line on how might that best be accomplished within the process.
Western has suggested the idea of maybe a to-do list. Here's another idea for us.
Very similar to what you were saying, Dana, but like a checklist, if we really want them to be independent and feel successful in this process, here's the landmarks you need to look for on your way there. Make sure you've looked at these things.
Okay, that's a great idea. Thank you.
Many people are agreeing in the chat as well.
Okay, good. I love it. See, this is why we all get together to talk about this.
And then, like, to your point, if they missed one of these things, it's not going to stop the process. And so I do appreciate that, because so many of us have been at an appointment and had to stop because something was wrong in the org profile. So that makes a lot of sense, but just any tips we can give them.
Okay, perfect. Okay, do we have any other outstanding questions right now? Okay. There is one place I did want to get into in the application, just to show you what we were talking about a little bit earlier. So as we're in the application, it's this program employment space where I was talking about how we're missing this visual right now. So whenever I go in there to review, we have all of these questions, and it was in here. Melissa and I both saw it before, where we have that box of here's Susie, my employee, here's Jane, my employee, and they were all right in this white space. So as you're going through and saying, okay, are all of our paid staff have the correct start date within the employees tab, it's right up above the question. So you're not having to like maybe flip back and forth in between windows, or have another tab open, or just completely losing your mind as, I don't know, are they? that information is all going to be there, with the exception of current administrator director linked to the administrator director on the classrooms tab. That's the only thing that we're not going to be pulling in there. So just know that all of that information will be up there right in front of everybody's face. So there's really no question. Now, if it does need to be updated, this functionality is not in the space itself right now, but we are thinking about adding a prompt where if they do say no, it's going to do something. So we want them to be in a space where they're really ready and having people connected before they do submit that application. Because like I said, the application is going to be auto approved. They're not going to have that space anymore for, Melissa to go in and enter in all of their information. Instead, it's just going to go straight into the self-reflection.
Yes, so if we can't get the system to do something, we will be adding text at the top to explain if you select no to any of the questions below, please make the correction, something very clear. But so we will at least have that text at the top. I just haven't written it yet.
Okay, what other questions might you have?
Are these titles not, well, are these questions set in stone already, or are they being tweaked as well?
I believe these are pretty much done, right?
Okay.
Melissa?
The only thought that I was, I think there's still so much confusion around what applied for individual membership means, which I know sounds a little wild, but I was wondering if there could be just like some sort of a tooltip or something around that one that kind of describes what that is or what that looks like, or and I guess my question is if they're expired, does that count still as well? But just something that kind of prompts them a little bit to understand that. It's just a suggestion. If not, I totally understand. I just can picture people saying, oh yeah, they have individual memberships because they have profiles. Still trying to clarify that with certain people.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We can, I don't know if we can put help text on these. But we can ask.
Yeah, we will definitely ask. It might be tricky with these individual questions. I can't think off the top of my head where we have an example of help text right now, but all we can do is ask.
I feel like Pennsylvania did have some type of help text. It might not be what I'm envisioning in my head, but I feel like they had something.
Okay. Yeah, we'll look into that, Candy.
Or really, quite honestly, even if it says, I mean, I don't know if there's room for this, but somewhere that says, if you have questions or don't understand what these things are, call your resource center and they'll help you.
Yeah.
That will definitely go up top. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so someone else also mentioned maybe putting an example of the membership box. So I really wish we could show you what it looks like up top and you could see it, because it does say individual membership and then something, so it's there. But I think there's probably a way we can call it out better in just these questions as well to provide some of that clarification.
Yeah, let me see. Let me see if I can open this up real quick, because I took a picture of it. We can just refresh our memories on. Let me swing this document over. Okay, can everybody see this? A little bit bigger here. Okay, so this is what it's supposed to be up there. So we'll be able to see, you know, Valerie's name. You can edit her stuff right here. You can see her employment dates, her employment status being verified, what her title is, and what her career pathway is. Does that sort of answer the question?
Well, it does in a backwards way. I thought it had membership status and it does not. So we'll have to rethink
Okay.
about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And since it's gone right now, I'm going to guess that there's still some room for adding things in.
Yeah. I'll have to think about it.
Okay.
This is helpful though. It's helpful. I think so much of these things are going to be wonderful. It's just getting our brains to sync with the new process and new information. It's like, as soon as I think, oh yeah, but what about, and then I'm like, oh, but wait, we don't need that. So I think it's coming together beautifully.
Okay. So did we respond to this question from Brooke? Will they know what employees tab is referring to? So that, I think that refers to the questions in here. Do we have all the correct start date in the employees tab? That's going to be a good question because we're sort of referring back up to the top of the page, right? And maybe we can have that in explainer text.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Man, I would hope
Mhm.
people would know what the employees tab is since I refer them there all the time, but we can clarify.
I love that, Brooke. Yes. I think that we can be surprised sometimes too.
I think we have to remember too that providers call things differently than we do. So they might say, you know, the employee sheet or my staff, blah, 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 the staff list, when they really mean the employees tab, but they just don't call it that. So yeah, thank you for being thoughtful about that.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I think we also have to remember that they're not in this every day or every other day like we are. So there's a lot of other things going on in their lives where this is our work.
Yep. I think that's a great thing to keep in mind, Liz.
So as we've been going through like these questions here specifically, to me, I'm thinking if I were a program, what would be helpful is to know like how to prepare for these questions, right? Like, have you updated, you know, or do you know where what the employees tab is? Have you updated that? And give them like some pre-work to do so that when they get to this, they're not panicking like, oh, shoot, now I have to go and do all these things in order to be able to submit this. So maybe like in that one of those first boxes that you showed like where they go to hit that apply button, maybe have some text prompts in there to kind of get some of this before work done before they get to this. Does that make sense?
Yep. This is great feedback. Okay, what other questions might you have? Okay, I'm going to start closing the window on questions. Anything else? I mean, these were all fantastic questions. You know, this is stuff that is really, really helpful to us as we are continuing the planning process and the building process for this application for the rest of the system. So let's go back in here. Oh my gosh, it took me all the way to the beginning. Okay, let's talk a little bit about our next steps. So like I was saying, this is our first training on our system revisions. Our next training is going to be on May the 4th. For any of you nerds out there, Star Wars Day. So we'll be getting together and we'll be talking about the indicators that day. Again, I'm going to send out probably a little bit longer training video on this one. There's a lot of indicators. So we have some to talk about there. So we'll be talking about the indicators and the self-reflection at that time on the 4th. Remember, if you think back to that training plan that we talked about the last time that we all got together, the training after this is going to be on June the 8th. So just, have that marked down on your calendars. We are working with our friends, our colleagues in the LEP program to make sure that we don't have any more scheduling snafus within our group, so that we're trying to avoid each other's dates. So just know that we're trying to be proactive about that as well, so that we can have everybody join us. Okay, with that, I will give the opportunity for any last questions. Otherwise, we can let you all get on with your day. Okay, I'm hearing none. Thank you, everybody, for your awesome participation. I really appreciate it. Look for the slides and the recording of the session to be coming to you fairly soon. And we will talk to you in a month. Thank you.